Hello and welcome to this segment on CTN. To learn more about the show, please visit CIOTalkNetwork.com. And as always, we invite you to join the discussion on Twitter and look for this show as hashtag leadership and hashtag rider. Making the rider a customer for life is the topic for us here today. And our guest is V.S. Parthasarathy, who's the Group CFO, Group CIO, President, Group M&A and Finance for Mahindra and Mahindra. Hi, Partha. How are you?
Very good and very happy to join this conversation. It's a very good evening in India, and it's, I suppose, a good morning to all of you.
Thank you so much again, Partha. So the whole discussion was supposed to be about the customers who we have, or a rider. Let's talk about rider first. So as a rider, we all, depending on which age group we belong to and where we are, what kind of needs we have, we decide how the ride should be. Is it a pure transport or is it supposed to be fun filled? So when you start profiling, if you will, because I'm sure Mahindra and Mahindra is deep into this sector, what do you see as, would you call as common denominator of what a rider wants? And then of course there are custom layers. But let's start with the common denominators.
In terms of the what rider wants, has some topic which has had every car company on tender hooks, and here's the way I look at this. The first one, what a customer wants to get from point A to point B is comfort, convenience, needs which are good, and things that he can get a charging point, things like that. Things are convenience. So basically, if you want to segment these at present, and customer is looking at four. First one is basic is safety. Do I have things that will keep me safe, whether it's airbag, will my child lock system work, traction control, is it good, meaning basically braking is sound. Then there are something which they want to measure the health of the car, in the sense it should not break down. For example, they want sensors which monitor the health today, tire pressures, battery life, to tell them that before the battery runs down or the tire pressure is not right, they would like that to be known. Hmm? This is just evolved from earlier time where such a indicator never used to exist. The third is more in terms of, can I get navigation support, a GPS, when I'm parking, a camera forward, backward, parking assistant, those kind of things. And the fourth one is in terms of environment. Many of them say, hey, I have to be environment friendly. Can I have a hybrid? Can I have an EV, the first generation? This is the kind of things that a rider looks at. But if you are to kind of sit back and think, there are two kinds of subtopics I wanted to introduce. One is, there are people who have this object of transportation. How do I get from place A to place B? And these will apply. Then there is an object of desire, as I call it. That's where he said, hey, do I have a macho car or something which suits my style, off-roading and things like that. So there is an object of desire. And this is more often than not what a manufacturer has to think through and has to know how to come, because at the point when it is delivered to the customer, it should excite him. It cannot be done in a survey 4 years before you start a program. So these are two things, object of transportation and object of desire.
Now, if you look at the personas that someone who is somewhat associated with the car is someone who's an owner who bought the car, who's supposed to be responsible for the upkeep. Then you have a rider, and then you have a customer, because that customer is associating him or herself with that car, or rather with the car manufacturer, that, well, I have an experience, but there could be an experience inside the car and outside. So if you've got these three personas, because frankly, not every time people only buy a RAR because they loved riding it, or they had a pride of ownership, but also what they see is the experience dealing with a dealership or with a manufacturer if something goes wrong, or how much did they think about their interest over theirs. So how do we kind of take those personas and go a little deeper so that they could start with an owner, or maybe they're a rider, but they could be a future owner, but they then become a customer of for life. That's what we're talking about here. What is being done to understand the profiles and dig deeper?
If you are talking about how do we evaluate a customer preference for a smooth, car experience, is that what you're talking, or just
It
give
could
me
be
a little
outside
bit?
too, right? So when you say a rider, so while I might be a rider, but I also know that I drove a certain car, but
Yeah.
then outside of it, something happens to it, or I need to get something done to it, or I need some other assistance related to it. Then I have an ecosystem, maybe my car insurance person, or it is the car manufacturer. So because for them, they have multiple entities they are dealing with just because they own a car or they ride in one.
So if you're looking at that's a great question. When I'm riding the car. My basic object is to feel how I feel when I'm riding the car. But if I'm customer, I can't just worry about the ride. I also worry about what happens to my experience with the car 360 degrees. So what over and above the things that I mentioned, that a rider wants to feel safe, feel environmentally connected, feel all the health issues are saying, they also need to look at the purchase decisions, okay, whether it is online or offline. So it has to, now more and more people are saying, can I get a one stop solution? So when you walk into a dealership, are you looking at only buying the car, or buying the car plus insurance plus getting it financed, everything? So that's at the time of buying. So and how do I do it even without getting out of my house or wherever I am in place? Let me take an example. Today, even in India, as we are talking about, we are saying, can we have a virtual showroom? You sit at your home, and as if you are ordering a pizza, can you also look at the vehicle and see how the car feels? Have a test drive done virtually. Look at online channels for features and compare it with other cars which are there. Get the financiers to pitch for you, and look at various insurance schemes that are available. Can all this be available? So that's at the time of buying the car. But that it can't be only buying the car. So post sale of customer, when you are at the customer service, say you are in warranty, and so therefore alerting the customer of upcoming maintenance. Tie in with the insurers. How you can tie in with the insurers, such as offering discounts, who drive safely. How do you get some of the things which says good customers should get good benefits from it? So how do we speak with this? So it's an important issue now which is comes up. Now post warranty, not only is authorized service center, but in India, as maybe in the case of US, there are many third party service agencies. How do we make sure that they know the nearest point? There is a connect there. So now we are working more with what we call as first choice here. It's an after sales service company. So they, how do they connect with our cars which we have given, and how do they feel not only connected but wanted, and they have an all round good experience? So this is the some of the things that we look at in India.
Now, in on basis of what you've seen, those common fundamentals and the expectations or preferences, would you say a decade ago it was different and now it is different because we have shown a rider what's possible, or is it fundamentally there is a change in the DNA of the rider, if you will, on what they would have expected from a transport?
Okay. So in the past, if there was a car which looked good, which was fuel efficient and mechanically controlled, then everything was absolutely okay. And today, however, that's not the case. So, like I said, today a rider expects health aspects, and he wants constant monitoring. He wants us to be told, him to be told what is going wrong with his car before they go wrong. They want safety of airbags, etc., anti-locks, brakes, traction control. Some of these were available a decade ago, but most of the new generations ones have been available only lately. Navigation is certainly a huge change from one decade back. The GPS, the maps, 10 years back, you had to know the way, you had to find somebody who knew the way, or you stopped somewhere and asked for the way. But today, GPS is and maps. Without that, I think the whole transportation system will come to a halt. So very clearly, big changes that has happened. Look at just a simple thing like parking, rear camera and the forward camera, and parking assistance. This is something which has happened, and therefore the rider as well as the car owner, I mean, and without trying to differentiate, all of them want these technologies now, a hybrid, because he says, hey, I want to be able to be environmental friendly, I want to save on fuel. Now the fuel cost may have changed a little bit, but there is environment plus cost consciousness which brings it down. So all these have really changed from what it was 10 years back to today, and this change is driven by technology. Just to give you a perspective, 10 years back in India, there were only two kinds of vehicles, an ambassador and a Fiat. So today, every technology known is doing the rounds on the road. And from in terms of vehicle, from UE to passenger cars, and whichever technology you talk, from the brand, luxury brand to the very, very basic ones. So all of them are present, and all of them have features which 10 years back was not imaginable.
Now, if you look at the features, like you mentioned about what were not available earlier versus now, so if you just think about features, yes, the rider may start wanting more features because they feel either they need it or they want it. But if it becomes a race for the features, it's not long before every manufacturer would be able to offer them, because these technologies are horizontal, they are available, and they're becoming cheaper by the day. So they're becoming standard on some of the basic cars also. But that cannot be. So if you think about a rider and who has been a rider for many years, and this car versus that car offer similar features, so they cannot be a source of competitive advantage, and they cannot be the source of stickiness with a brand. There has to be something beyond which a person experiences as a rider for them to transform into a customer who stays. Please stay tuned, listeners. We'll be right back and explore what those beyond feature attributes are, which will make it happen.
Today, enterprise technology is both strategic and global. Each week on CTN CIO Talk Network, IT thought leaders from around the world share their experience with listeners as they discuss with Sanjog Aul how they are trimming costs and partnering with business to innovate and help IT become more competitive, better care for customers, and improve the corporate bottom line. If you want to keep up with IT thought leadership, listen to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul at CIOTalkNetwork.com. You are listening to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul. To learn more about our program, please visit CIOTalkNetwork.com. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. So, Partha, when we discussed all of these different areas, how the needs and wants are changing for a rider, we definitely spoke about features, and you are absolutely correct. Yes, there is a need and want which never stops, and we kind of play catch up as manufacturers. But that is more features, and if every car out there over a period of time catches up, and every manufacturer, then it becomes a level playing field, and you don't really have a competitive advantage. And more so, a customer doesn't have any way to differentiate between one manufacturer over the other. So what would be those not so obvious attributes which will make a customer stay?
So that's a very pointed and a very poignant question. That why do we own cars and why do we stick with one brand? Yeah, why do we like a particular brand? I talked to you about four things: safety, health, navigation, and environment. Now, can we say these are stable stakes for every car? Not necessarily, but let's say 80% of the car have most of the features that we talk about in these factors, and the 20 may be more like you pay a little bit more, you can have something. I think the bigger thing why people love a particular car is the styling that the car brings, the power that of the feel that the car brings or the vehicle brings, how the utility vehicle, the SUV that you own, the sedan that you own, how does that bring my persona to life? So that's the styling. That's what I want. I'm a cool guy, so I need a cool car. And then I define what that cool car means to me. And when these styling and that kind of feature is available to the person, some of this, let's just say that the music system inside the car must be fine-tuned. I need music for music's sake. But I have customers coming into that said, can I have it 6 people? I need to hear from the back, the bass sound a little bit more. I need audio to be this kind of level. And they need those kind of fitments, which then makes that car feel as if this is my room in the house on wheels. And that is what the stickiness will come through in the long run. All the other basic feature will be stable stakes.
So are you saying that customization is our ability to customize and suit to profile, if you will, or fit to profile?
Design, utility of the vehicle that I'm using, and customization. 3 things that we do. The style of the car. A Porsche guy is always going to love that design of that car. And UV, I mean a Mahindra customer who is doing off-roading on a Scorpio will every time, my wife says, give me a Scorpio. Don't give me any other car. I don't want to touch it, man. And I want my Scorpio. So, and the third one is customization. How do I find each of the places, things that I keep? Where is my copy mark going to be placed? How is the music system going to interact with me? Those specific customization that I require would be the third thing.
So we speak about the actual unit which is being sold, but then there is a process of acquisition and getting the person yet again into the dealership. And maybe the manufacturer is not truly interfacing with the customer or not doing the service at any given time. But still, we see there is a name which either goes to the top or goes to the based on how the experienced person has. So even though they may have had a good experience earlier, they get swayed by their friend who says, what, you come to this place, they will really treat you well. And frankly, the cars are good. So there is something more in the mix than the actual physical unit that a person purchases and or rides in.
Absolutely.
What would you say to that?
I would say absolutely, with one proviso. When you first walk into the car, into the dealership, and if your experience is not great, or if you're trying something online and if you can't get the page to load, you're put off with the entire experience, then the buying decision will get hugely impacted by how you want to buy or don't buy that car from that dealership of that particular make. When you're coming back, this experience is again the same. You may have the advantage of a start point that I brought it from that place and it was good experience last time. But when you walk in and if you don't get the same treatment, what you desired, then you come on the back foot and the negative cycle starts. So it's very clearly that the point of contact and the point of interaction with the customer has to be very good. If I have this 1/3 theory that's saying anytime when a product is successful, it's 1/3 the front end contract, 1/3 the product, and 1/3 what we do after the product has been bought by the customer, how we engage with him. So this first part is absolutely important. The second part is equally important, that when you buy the car, you have a dream. And that dream of what that car will do for you gets enhanced once you experience the product or diminishes. If it meets or exceeds expectation, then you have a customer who will go and again talk to a customer. I'll give you one example of not a car, but a tractor of Mahindra. And this one customer in US bought it. And this was a guy who's bought a 55 horsepower tractor, which earlier we was doing through 75 horsepower. And he started this tractor and it could do any work which he wanted it to do for the first few days. I have now this 20th customer coming into Mahindra USA to buy another tractor just because he can't stop talking about what my Mahindra tractor could do. So that's the positive word of mouth. I don't need to tell you about the negative word of mouth, especially the social media. It could kill an airlines, as you have seen in some example where one, I saw it in the Harvard case when I studied it, that somebody misplaced the guitar of a guitarist, and it's all over YouTube, right? And I'm sure you about this. So clearly that experience is important. Product experience is equally important. That's the first time. Then the moment of truth for a customer or for a owner comes when the first time a service is required or his car stops in midway. That's a very, very poignant moment for him. It's a very troubling moment for him, how everything around him revolves at that time. If he's stuck in highway and waiting for 6 hours, I'm sure how he's going to look at that company next time he has to decide on something. So I think these three phases, if I can stop here and say the first phase at the interaction, second interaction with the product, and the third phase interaction at the time after buying the product in terms of service, spare parts, or any other thing.
Now, whatever we mentioned, and in fact, you came up with that great formula of one third, one third, one third, which kind of makes a customer stay or versus defect. Now, that is a great formula, and I'm sure as part of the overall analysis, some of those are being made. But now, given that we are in this information age and we have created this Internet of Things, which could introduce connectivity, perhaps there is a next level of learning or data collection and or measuring and subsequent analysis, which could very well be adopted to not just base our decisions on pure surveys, if you will, and get into the heads and the hearts of the, and there are different ways the whole world is trying. So if you were to take connectivity as the next frontier, if you will, when it comes to car, this particular area, what do you think is being put on the roadmap for a manufacturer like you and also I'm sure your competitors, where they're thinking, okay, now we are done just talking to people in an analog fashion, let's go digital, or maybe combine the two in the best possible manner. So what's on the map?
Let's go first in terms of technology forward, and then we can kind of look at some more detailed aspects. So first, let me kind of the future looks to me something like today technology is assisting riders, drivers, and owners in many sense, whether it is and on all the parameters which I saw: safety, health, navigation, and environment. But going forward, I think the technology we move from an assisting mode to a predominate mode. And what does it mean? That maybe it requires a little bit of instruction from the owner or rider. The rest of it, many of these things, the car will start to kind of do on its own as we go along. The first is fully connected car. And let's say for a minute that the car is finding itself in trouble in terms of something failing. Then the car would dial up the insurance company, would get the nearest service center to send for a track. It may ask for an alternate car for the owner to be transported and so on. So I think the fully connected car is not very far. The second is that your driverless cars are going to be, it's not no more theoretical, it's there, they're being tested, they're coming, and this is going to come. You also are looking at purebred electric and solar cars, which is kind of going to make more and more inroads, not just because of petrol costs or diesel costs, but because you cannot get away from the fact that environment is getting more difficult in metros and main cities. So it's going to get more and more into electric and those kind of vehicles. So this is what technology is going to be used. But let's say for a minute today, as you look at a connected car, what is that and we are doing with its data, and what is that we can do with the data? So let me not kind of do it theoretical. Let me talk about Mahindra and Mahindra. So we are now using data available from the vehicle to improve customer experience and create business opportunities. Let's talk about first the sensors in the car and what messages that they are conveying. So what happens is that car repairing services are being alerted, and SMS or instruction goes to the driver, and that is then feeding into the service center so that he can be serviced and scheduled in a very seamless manner. We are now able to do this more and more with the new generation cars that we are supplying, and that's happening as we speak today, not tomorrow. The second is data about the driving behavior of customer is not starting to come up, and we're now looking how we can tie up with insurance providers and financial institutions to be able to do better with the guys who are doing very good role on terms of safe driving and efficient driving. Another example I wanted to give is that we have an electric vehicle which is called as Mahindra E2. This analyzes the vehicle in great detail, and using the performance of the battery data over a certain time period and the fact driving pattern during the day, the car will call up the driver and give him a message, or call him and speak to him and say, "Hey, Mr. Driver, you got to go another 50 miles. Your battery is already gone, is only left 30%. So you're going to be in trouble unless you do a speed charging for 10 minutes in the next 1 hour before you start." So this is going to be great service to the individual where we are starting to use. Using the same example, when we look at how the customer experiences a vehicle, our research center, we call that as Mahindra Research Valley, which is located in south of India and has about 2,000 people. So it gives them data in terms of saying this design of the car is appreciated, this design is not getting appreciated. And therefore, the future design of car is also being impacted by the ability of data, by using this data and analyzing this data, and the ability of the analytics and various input gatherers who are able to analyze that data and come out with this kind of an output for the customer. This was not possible 5 years back. So may not be even 3 years back. But today we are able to do that. And I think this is increasing customer loyalty and making him stand with us.
Let's take a quick break, listeners. We'll be right back. And when we do come back, let's talk about this connectivity a little more. We know that there is no non-for-profit car manufacturer. They have to eventually see if there is a way for them to attract and retain new customers, or retain the existing customers and attract the new ones. And then they are to invest in this connectivity. So how is this being thought of in terms of monetization? Is the customer willing to pay more? Is it a loyalty play? Because at the end of it, there has to be an incentive for all parties involved to be able to invest towards the customer's retention. If loyalty is something of the past, then why would someone do it? So let's explore this a little bit more, connect it to see if this technology enabled services and offerings, are they really helping move or transform a rider to a customer? Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Today, enterprise technology is both strategic and global. Each week on CTN CIO Talk Network, IT thought leaders from around the world share their experience with listeners as they discuss with Sanjog Aul how they are trimming costs and partnering with business to innovate and help IT become more competitive, better care for customers, and improve the corporate bottom line. If you want to keep up with IT thought leadership, listen to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul at CIOTalkNetwork.com. You are listening to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. So, talking about a rider, they definitely need an incentive to, say, pay more for a car which gives us better connectivity. Yes, there are features, but then features are features. There is a limited value that somebody would place on it. Second is for the manufacturer, it becomes important that if all this was being done to attract a new customer and to retain a customer, is that really a myth? Because we see the today's well-informed, they defect in a heartbeat because they look for the best deal, for the best value that they can get. So where is this taking, this whole ecosystem taking us when you have more information, there is more connectivity? So Partha, if you were to kind of analyze this ecosystem today with connectivity now introduced, does that change the way manufacturers thought of investing further into converting a rider into a customer?
So this is what is the big thought process in each manufacturer. If we were to look at the way a manufacturer looks at this whole segment, now he's sitting there and thinking, hey, here is what has changed in life. The technology and connectivity and has changed dramatically. Some of the cost me a lot, but the customer would want value, and he wants all these things bundled. The second thing is hey, a rider, there are two kinds of people who are going to ride, and I call them the people who are just transporting and therefore consider vehicles or cars an object of transportation, versus people who think of it as an object of desire. So I have to take care of these two customers, two parties or two segments. One, a customer of transportation, and second, a customer who wants a car as an object of desire. The third aspect is that, hey, the connectivity is a big changer, but where is this taking me? Am I going to play it through my nose? And this is the third aspect of it, saying, hey, I want everything, but I don't want to pay for all these things, because if I pay for, then I would rather not own it, not have a car, probably being a rider forever without becoming an owner or a customer would be a preferred option. So all these three we have to figure out. So the way I see this whole movie going is the way the technology or the telecom industry went. When I first used my mobile phone, I think I paid for 10 calls more than what I pay for the entire month today on all the call data I get on my cell phone. And this is an evolution for not very long. So the same thing is happening to the vehicles. Technology will become more and more adaptable. Connectivity will become more and more adaptable. The thing that another thing that customer is also looking for is shorter time to change the vehicle. Now he doesn't want to wait. Earlier we used to have a life cycle time of 4.5 years for a car or a SUV or a UV. But today it may be even 3 years. Tomorrow it may even become shorter, and that's a challenge we'll have to face as well. So the way I'm seeing it, car companies have to start reckoning with shorter cycle time and object of desire and object of transportation needs of customers, and connectivity will be table stakes.
So in this whole ecosystem where you may want to stay ahead of the curve in order for you to be even considered as a manufacturer who a potential rider would like to opt for. But then, as you said, they may not always want to pay through their nose to be up to date with all the technology, and they may even start thinking of transport as available as people used to use a taxi. How about using something like Uber or some of its own flavor where you really don't need an ownership? So you want to be a customer, but you still don't want to be an owner of a unit, which will become out of date pretty quick. How is that supposed to impact, and how is that connected to a manufacturer leveraging technology or fundamentally rethinking how they're going to even exist?
It's a fantastic question, and somewhere along the line I try to bring in two terms called objects of transportation and object of desire. Let me just connect with this. Any person who is interested in transportation or moving from point A to point B, and especially in the new era where driving and parking is becoming more and more troublesome, aggregator like Uber, Lyft, in India, Ola additionally, and many parts Ola, and such like companies are providing these services, which is bundles many things. So there the customers may decide not to own a car at all. They may be only customers for the ride and not for the car. He can be a rider but not necessarily owner. So this change is a big change which is coming, already come, and this is only going to get more and more accentuated as we go on. So that's a change we have to reckon. So every manufacturer has to look at 2 points actually. One, where he's feeding these aggregators are these people who are then providing solution to the end customer or the rider. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is then they have to look at object of desire. There the person wants to off-roading, wants to feel the pulse of the car, wants certain customization. And there what I talked about earlier, customization, design of the car has to play a very large role in terms of that portion where it is an object of desire. So more and more, I kind of feel that families per number of cars may get diminished to be supplemented by aggregators like Uber, Ola, Lyft, and etc. So we need to cater to both these groups.
If you look at that as a model, if I were to be given a choice, I might use Uber when I want to go from point A to point B. I will not care about what stereo system it has. I might use a rental Uber or a rental car when I'm going with a family of 7. Or if I want to go for an off-road or I want to zip through the town, I might use a luxury rental. So at all times, what I've done is I've foregone this whole desire of ownership to using it as a utility. And when you do that and you change the ownership in the hands of the people who are aggregators, then they bring the cost pressures. And because even when they come to you, say, okay, we'll buy 1,000 vehicles from you. So yes, you got business, but you also know that when somebody buys 1,000, they expect a whole lot, which would further produce pressure or create pressure for the manufacturers, and then the margins would expect to go slim, and at some point manufacturer would say, really, is it worth it? So if you were to sit in the role that you sit, which is a combination of technology and the CFO, you may be thinking, at what point will I say, okay, enough squeezing the penny, I cannot sustain this as a business? And then on the other hand, your CIO hat, you'd say, okay, can technology come to rescue? What's your answer from wearing your both respective hats?
You're asking me to be a magician, okay? You're not asking me to be just wearing 2 hats. So I wish I was doing. But I wanted to bring in two points here. When you look at the future and technology cost is going to come down, it's not a manufacturer which drives it down. It's the entire technology and the connectivity. Today, there was a launch of a new telecom database services by one of the companies here. And what he's offering is, take a pack from me, database, and all voice calls are free. So I think technology's cost is coming down, and that will come to some bit of rescue. Having said that, a car has 4 wheels. It needs a drivetrain. It needs something to power it. All this costs. So the margins may get squeezed a little bit, but overall, on the object of transportation. However, the object of desire is something where I feel the adrenaline flow when I sit in my car. And I think there is this segment of car which is going to remain as a set of customers. And that's why I said, if a family today owns 4 or 5 cars, it may come down in terms of the cars owned. But the object of desire, where he says, no, I want an insurance, I want my own car. When I'm going out on the off-roading experience, I just don't want a rented car. I want my car to be there. That is going to run. There we are dealing still with the end customer and customization and ability to customer to have what he wants and organizations to make decent margins, both coexist. But overall, over a period of time, both the aggregators and manufacturers will have to coexist and both have to behave. Today, a lot of the Ubers are buying market share by subsidizing. At some point that will start. That allows the Ubers and others to have margins, and it'll also allow the manufacturers to have decent margin, lesser than what they had. But then the marketing cost also goes down. So net on a bottom line basis, they may be similar. I'll stop here because we may need to take another break.
So, yes, thank you so much, Partha. Let's take a quick break, listeners, and then now let's look at the way in the coming years, the way we have connectivity, the way the technology is connecting the customer to throughout the buying experience as well as the riding experience. So the technology is not being separated between the customer or the rider and the car and in and outside of the car. So when we talk about the 360 profiling, what type of learning of that customer that an auto manufacturer should be aspiring to get to so that they are ahead of the curve and you can actually at some point say, yes, I have a competitive advantage because I collected a certain type of data and now I'm going to mine it and then I'm going to provide these people the experiences which will bring them back. Please stay tuned, listeners. We'll be right.
Today, enterprise technology is both strategic and global. Each week on CTN CIO Talk Network, IT thought leaders from around the world share their experience with listeners as they discuss with Sanjog Aul how they are trimming costs and partnering with business to innovate and help IT become more competitive, better care for customers, and improve the corporate bottom line. If you want to keep up with IT thought leadership, listen to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul at CIOTalkNetwork.com. You are listening to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. So now, Partha, since we have through connectivity the established, that means the data could flow between the rider and the very car and the manufacturer, the dealership, you name it. So you can have that across the ecosystem. The value of creating this connectivity is banking on what type of data you will collect, and moreover, what type of churning and or analytics that you will create, which will have some meaningful use and result in what you want as a seller and what customer wants as a buyer.
So very quickly hitting on the what is the data mining all about and where it can be used. Look at what the vehicle parts functioning data analysis, better design of cars in future, what needs to be more strengthened, what can be take cost off. Car health indicator will so what kind of servicing, where, how fast, and that's a customer benefit and the manufacturer's delight in terms of making sure the car is on the road more. Third is driving behaviors and sensing out that could be at mining gold for the insurance company and the financing institutions. So these are one set of data which could come in very handy. Now, in terms of customers' expectations from the technology, could be how does the car becomes a personalized service for me? How do I get competent and timely service? And if there is a traffic jam, how can it help me? Real-time traffic and incident vehicle maintenance alert, etc. And the last one is want to feel connected and informed at all times. Automated driving, assisted driving, vehicle health reports. So all these are things that come to the customer.
Now, with all the discussions that we have had and about the rider, and they know the data is being collected about them, about their car, are you able to see that the privacy is becoming a growing concern, and if there is a plan to reduce it, because that's a stigma and people will somehow at some point say, okay, I don't want this to be done to my car, or I don't want you to collect the data. So then you are kind of handicapped in that respect.
Yeah. I think this is a big concern, which is a real and appropriate concern which exists in this, and business has to look at it very, very sensitively. So confidentiality, security of the data, So let's take, for example, traditional customer data source like CRM. Data checks and balances for usage of data, even across legal entities of the same group, needs to be taken. For example, in Mahindra Group, one legal company can't share its customer data with another company unless there is very specific agreements with the customer. His privacy has to be understood. Not only that, if suppose the data is even allowed to be shared, he cannot be approached unless he wants to be approached. His privacy has to be respected. Similarly, let's take the new age ones, new data source like sensors. In M&M, we are in a stage of learning what to do and what not to do. We need to give the same level of security and governance to this as we do with traditional data that is shared in terms of CRM. And we need to ensure we are not intruding into customers' privacy. Telling him his battery is going to run out is good. And how do we get these pieces, and what is right, what is not, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable? How one thing that we have done is data used for analytics are all encrypted. So there cannot be any loss of data or it can't be stolen. So we have ensured this. We also now have legal framework which kind of gives us usage of data and restrictions on usage of data. For example, I tell you in Mahindra, the customer data is hosted on a strict secured server. Data collected from this, which is called DigiSense, is stored on a secured cloud. But having said that, I must say that the concerns on security and on privacy needs a little exploring with technology, and we have to arrive at the right balance that it is good and it doesn't become intrusion into customers' privacy.
On behalf of the show and our listeners, I'd really like to thank you, Partha, for sharing your thoughts on how the auto manufacturers, the dealers, the customers, and the insurance providers, you name it, the part of the ecosystem which allows a rider to really enjoy the ride and also get from point A to point B and get their needs and desires met. That's what we feel, if done right, and connectivity and other data related analytics was done in properly, it should be able to help us get from a rider to a customer. So thank you so much again for the insight shared, Partha.
Thank you. My pleasure, and I was delighted to be on the show.
Thank you once again. Listeners, please like us on Facebook, search for CTN, CIO Talk Network, and be please sure to follow us on Twitter. Thank you again for listening to this segment on CTN. This is Sanjog Aul, your talk show host. Till next week, take care and God bless.